And we are back once again. Happy Monday, August 24th. It's the Spin Cycle. Andrew Southwick and RC Williams with you today. And RC, listen, friends, today, just right off the top, man, our internets are a little bit funky. So if we start doing kind of a stop motion thing, bear with us. We appreciate your patience. We also thank you so much. Remember, big three: like, share, subscribe at whatever page or channel you are viewing this on, whether you're watching live or on demand. It helps the channel grow. And again, lets the algorithms know this is the type of content that you want to see. And all we're trying to do is bring you the headlines of the day, but without the spin. That's why we use the spin cycle. We're going to remove the spin, bring you the truth. You can do what you will with it. If you agree with our conclusion, great. If you don't, that's okay too. But we thank you for it. RC, why don't you take it away with all the other places they can find us, and then we'll get in. We, as Rush Limbaugh used to say, we've got a stack of stuff today.
All right, Andrew, I'll do the best I can here with the chop signals. So all things Watchmen Action, you can go to Watchmen, M-E-N, it's plural, watchmenaction.org. All the socials for Watchmen Action are simple, Watchmen Action. You can also catch all things good from Andrew Southwick, including Spin Cycle, Culture Crossroads, and his incredible monologues on YouTube at Culture Crossroads 316. And as he said, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. All of those are critically important so that we get the word out to as many people as possible. Every eye that needs to hear, every eye that needs to see, and every ear that needs to hear, we need them all. So that starts with you.
And every eye that needs to hear, every eye that needs to hear, every eye that needs to see. Get it right, Andrew. Every ear that needs to hear. Couldn't be a better segue for our first segment today and our first story. Because it's not our eyes and ears that our government wants on them. It's their eyes and ears they want on us. I have some footage of some new Palantir technology, Palantir and Maven/Gotham, okay? And what this technology is designed to do, it's designed to combine large volumes of military and intelligence data into a common operational picture, okay? Now you can, now that's jargon for effectively, and what you're going to see here in this clip is that it is monitoring you walking around. And I've got two clips to back this up, because not only are you going to see the technology explained, but then you're going to see them talk about it in their own words. And again, so I'm going to run these clips here, and you're not going to believe this. This first one, here you go. This is, he's explaining to you their Palantir spying technology. Check this out.
This is Maven Smart System, Palantir's software as a service product that we are deploying across the entire department. As you can see, it's not just one data feed, it's multiple. And instead of having 8 or 9 systems for those decision makers to look at every single day in order for them to make decisions, you then fuse it into a single visualization tool. The single visualization tool allows you to select different types of data.
That could be your business,
look
your
at
work.
Different approaches to data, but more importantly, action from the same system that you're
going to a
trying
strip
to
mall.
develop your workflows around. Once you have a detection that you want to actually move into a targeting workflow, for example, this is what we do. Left click, right click, left click, magically, it becomes a detection. That detection then gets moved into a workflow.
Look at all
this
that
is
data.
Standard digitized workflow, but I want to walk you through it quickly.
You're a
You have
data
different types of
workflow.
targets that are identified on the left there. Every single column produces a different type of decision-making process. Once you have that decision and you're trying to actually action that process, we now move into COA generation, course of action generation, where we are automatically, via a number of factors, trying to identify what the best asset to prosecute a target looks like.
Look at that. How much time it takes you.
Once we've got
I'm going to back up on that picture here. Look at this. So which metrics their AI should prioritize? You see time to target, distance, fuel, time on station. Literally, that can be, how long does it take you to go from your house to the grocery store to the library? How much time do you spend in the grocery store and the library? How much approximate fuel do you think you're using on those trips in the car that you have, which, by the way, they can tell exactly what that is. And of course, this is military terms, but you can see the application and what it would be on us. And you you know that it's going to come on us. All right, I'll just got 30 more seconds here. Check this out.
Once we've got the different approaches and we select one, we then can move directly into how do we action that target. So we've gone from identifying the target to now coming up with a course of action to now actioning that target, all from one system. This is revolutionary. We were having this done in about 8 or 9 systems where humans were literally moving detections left and right in order to get to our desired end state.
In order to get to their desired end status. Man, my goodness. Let me tell you, here's the next one, more from their own words. This is a clip from Fox News. Here's a Flock CEO defending their cameras.
I value my privacy.
Oh, I'm sorry, that's a little low volume. Let me do that again.
Employees value their privacy. I value my privacy. My family values their privacy. My employees value their privacy. But what we're talking about is safety as well. And so I think when people talk about just one of these, privacy or safety, they're prioritizing the wrong thing. And what we have to prioritize as a country is compromise. How do we have our safety and how do we balance privacy? And so when I think about legislation that calls for an outright ban, that's like banning vehicles. That would never have made sense. Instead, what we did is we introduced laws against drunk driving. We introduced laws around seatbelts, laws around airbags.
Right. So to ban flock cameras would be akin to banning cars, banning automobiles. Now, listen to this. Here's how they're going to use it in practice. Again, I'm showing you these because I want you to see. You just saw the technology. You saw how granular the information would be. Then you saw Flock CEO defending it and saying, hey, you can't have privacy if you want to be safe. That's, we need this, you'll be safe. And if you ban this, it's like you're banning the automobile, which is a false comparison. And now here, this is from Wall Street Apes. So you're also going to hear him at the end of it talking a little bit. But this is how they plan to use it on you and me.
If you don't have flock cameras, how are law enforcement going to detect and see somebody walking around, possibly looking to blow up your state capitol or commit terrorist acts?
I don't know, actual police work?
If you're not doing anything wrong and you're not committing any crimes, what do you care? I mean, you feel safer.
The idea that because you were able to use it effectively one time, my civil rights and my privacy are violated daily, that is a balancing act that I don't think a lot of people are comfortable with right now.
Yeah, that's the other side of the argument, but popular backlash has been growing against those cameras. A sheriff's deputy outside of New Orleans fired for using license plate reader cameras to track his ex-fiancée. And that's just one in a string of cases where officers have been caught allegedly misusing the cameras.
All right, so you get the point there, hopefully loud and clear. These Flock cameras, and it's not just Flock. Remember, we've got Axon too. I believe Axon, is that not the company that President Trump has some investments in as well? They're actually
Correct.
replacing on the market, and they are competition to Flock, so they're probably fine with us taking down Flock because nobody's looking at Axon. But but you have the granular level of how it works, how your data, how your whereabouts and everything that you're doing is triangulated, tabulated, recorded. You're a workflow, you're a data workflow. Their Flock is going to sell it to you as safety. And then you've got law enforcement coming out and saying, well, gee, how else are we going to stop the bad guys unless we can monitor everybody all the time? And let me remind you the other piece of this puzzle that they've laid out in a different context, but we have yet to connect it to this story. You'll recall President Trump being indicted on a bunch of stuff during the campaign. That's pretty much what his presidential campaign was. You'll recall all the J6ers, the federal, which was an FBI. We know that was an FBI setup, and it was a photo op so they could further their narrative. And congratulations, they were able to do that. But we held all kinds of J6ers without actual charges for some of them for years. Mm-hmm. Here's what's happening. It's no longer, and you're seeing even our understanding of law become different. It used to be, here, there's a crime, now let's find the criminal. Now it's going to be, here's a person, and now we're going to find the crime, or we're going to invent the crime. And this is not anything new. Book of Daniel, those of you who read the Bible, the Old Testament, you have Daniel. The reason he went into the lion's den was because some of the political leaders didn't like that Daniel was praying to God. And so they went to the king and said, hey, they basically set him up and said, hey, let's make a law that nobody can pray to their God. They all have to worship you, King. And because they knew they'd catch Daniel. And so they invented a crime to catch a person who they were actively monitoring and watching. This is what is coming. This is not fear mongering. This is not conspiracy theory. I just played you the clips in order. This is what they plan to do. We had Event 201 with COVID where they game theoried what would happen if a coronavirus went all over the world and what they would do. And sure enough, they did it, and it wasn't even a year later. They're telling you what they want to do. And that last clip also mentioned Darcy, and then I'll shut up.
Mm-hmm.
He said, how else are we going to catch people walking around? Walking around. How else are we going to be able to monitor you as you go from the funnel cake booth at the fair to the porta potty? We can't possibly have you doing that unless we're watching. RC.
That guy looked crazy. The last guy, he's like the freeze frame. His eyes. He's like,
well, they kind of have to be, I think.
Yeah. How are we going to do it? Maybe doing your job like actual police work. I don't know. Maybe that works. I don't know. If that's out of style, then I'm on the wrong train. Maybe. Andrew, listen, I encourage everybody to do what we've told them to do for years. Everybody should go back right now and watch the movie Minority Report. Why do you ask? Well, because you're actually living in it now, right? They're showing you basically pre-crime. Here we go, right? Find me the man, I'll find you the crime. And they're going to take all of those markers like they did for where they were going to deploy the weapon, and they're going to start deploying it on you. And you can say we're conspiracy theorists, tighten up our tinfoil hats, we're making a mountain out of a molehill. Listen, even before the Patriot Act, but really after the Patriot Act took effect, you were really living in a surveillance state. And it's only intensified in the last 25 years. And it's going to continue to intensify unless we do something about it. And these guys will always run the same game on you. They will always run we can't keep you safe and secure unless you're willing to give up a little freedom here. And if you're not doing anything wrong, you have nothing to worry about. That is the biggest crock of bull ever, right? Because who determines whether or not you're doing something right or wrong? How can that be bent or twisted? Mm-hmm. How soon before speech that is disagreed with is considered doing something wrong? And then how's that going to be interpreted? Who's going to interpret it? How is that going to go? Folks, this is exactly why the Constitution exists. For this exact reason.
And we've already seen, even with this administration, who you and I would normally be in support of, because it's our guys in the White House, it's our team in the White House, it's our team in the Senate, it's our team in the House. But when Jimmy Kimmel had something offensive to say, the pressure from the president was to get him fired. He was suspended for a week and he came back on. The pressure from this administration to crack down on The View because they have a left bias. Well, duh. I mean, haven't they been on for almost 30 years? When were they ever having the George Will types on? I can't remember. I don't recall that at all. So all of a sudden now, but here's the thing: if we'll do it on our side to that degree, obviously, across the aisle, they're going to do it too. And here's the thing: across the aisle is being increasingly taken over by communists who absolutely do that. That's what they do. Mm-hmm. Let me ask you this. Do you think that we who are defending this kind of thing now, because it's happening under a Republican administration, would we tolerate the same architecture under a Democrat or an otherwise hostile administration?
Absolutely not, Andrew. People would be out of their mind. Right. They would be absolutely out of their mind. But this is the fear that we had on election night. We said, if people get apathetic after, because it's like, oh, Trump's in office, everything is going to be fine. This thing is going to come at you like a freight train. Well, the freight train now, as you've got your foot on the track, is about 15 feet away. Mm-hmm. And it seems like you still haven't figured it out yet. It's like this exact thing. So we absolutely would not tolerate it if this was the other side. Right, we'd be screaming at the top of our lungs, "This is insane surveillance state. I know my rights." Blah 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 blah. But for whatever reason, for now, as they say on the History Channel, it seems to be okay.
And here's the other thing on that: they're just doing it to us. When did you and I vote for any of that? And I wonder, I really do wonder. And hopefully we can have our buddy Bill Federer on at some point, because he knows history. He also knows the Constitution. But are we getting into some we're in post-constitutional republic, let's be honest about that. But in terms of how we're behaving. But are some of these things rubbing up against the Constitution, because you're seeing now what the government can't get away with? That's what the public-private partnership is. The government can't get away with it, so they get into bed with these private, billion dollar, multi-billion dollar companies in order to do the thing that the government could not do because they're prohibited by the Constitution. But of course, the private business can do whatever they want. We'll be keeping an eye on this for sure. Story 2, RC.
Yes, sir.
Just your general take. How has the tariff policy been working? And I'm not fishing for a negative answer. Maybe there are some aspects where it has made sense. I'm curious as to your objective understanding of how the tariff policy is working.
So look, it's hard to tell how effectively it's working, Andrew. Our feeling and our position has been that leveraging it the way that it's being leveraged now is partying like it's 1989. And again, I think that goes back in part to Peter Navarro providing so much consultation on policy. It's nothing personal against Pete. It's just he's thinking in an antiquated way in a world that kind of knows what that game is. So can you apply pressure? Yes, but is it sustainable? So here's what happened. Tariffs go into effect, right? Here comes a hammer. But then all of a sudden, the Supreme Court of the United States decides, well, you can't do it this way. They didn't tell him he couldn't do it. Okay, just so we're all clear. They just said, you can't do it in this way. The fact that it even came to that is a pretty sad testament. Like, well, then why didn't you just do it the right way? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So I honestly, Andrew, it's hard to tell outside of we're having to refund a ton of money. And it doesn't seem to have stopped much of anything.
I did read just the other day, toward the end of last week, either Thursday or Friday, Walmart received $3 billion in tariff refunds.
Cool.
That I guess, and that's something. And I guess now they're going to try to put that back into deeper discounts at the retail level, because their quarterly sales took a dive. And gee, you wonder why. I thought this was the golden age. But I bring up the tariff because Trump just announced a new 50% tariff on Canada that applies to specific Canadian automobiles, trucks, auto parts, and steel. Not imports from every country, just from Canada. And he said this 50% tariff rate would take effect January 1st, 2027. The Federal Reserve, just as a note, found that tariff-sensitive goods imported from China were about 8.5% more expensive year over year by December of last year, with a 30% consumer pass-through in studied categories. So we're paying about 8.5% more on goods from China. A 2026 NBER study estimated roughly 26% of tariff increases were passed on to the consumers and found some domestically produced goods also rose because imported inputs became more expensive. So in other words, you have some things that are made in America, and that's true, but they have to outsource for certain specific parts or certain pieces of what they make. Well, because those imports had a tariff, those prices rose, and you saw basically 1 in 4 businesses pass on those prices to the consumer. Now, here is, let me put this on the screen. Here's Sean Duffy, Treasury Transportation, defending the trade dispute and the tariffs on Canada.
We're great trading partners, right? But Canada gets the benefit of trading with the U.S. way more than the U.S. gets the benefit of trading with Canada. It's a country that doesn't have a military. It has a country that has a single-payer healthcare system that's failing. They have record-high euthanasia rates. And so to think that they're going to go to war with Donald Trump and actually win that war with the U.S., I think it's foolish on their part. And again, I think what the president's trying to do with Jamieson Greer, who, by the way, has done an amazing job representing the president and America, is we want fairness for the American worker. And some of our best friends are the worst offenders that treat us the worst. And the fact that we provide their security for them and they take advantage of us, I think President Trump was the first one to go, you know what, that's not the kind of relationship that friends should have. And so the president's calling them out. I think you're going to see Mark Carney come to the table very, very quickly because it's going to be devastating for his country.
Well, nothing on the table as far as talks are concerned. A lot of finger pointing.
Right.
So we'll keep tracking that. I want to get.
So, RC, I do have another question here about these tariffs for you. We just heard a laundry list of why the tariffs. Well, they're not treating us fairly. So effectively, they're setting these up as being punitive tariffs, that we're in a tariff war, if you will. I thought the tariffs were twofold. One, to raise a bunch of revenue for America, and two, to reshore production in America. But it doesn't seem like that's the way it's playing out. Meanwhile, we are still paying more for the cost of everything.
Interesting, Andrew. I was going to say earlier, I don't know whether or not the tariffs are working on China, because I would have never known that the increasing cost from products from China was up 8%, because everything's expensive. I have no idea, right? Like, did I feel it? Probably, but then again, it was muddled with everything else, right? So, I mean, hard to tell. And look, you got to carry the water for the team that you're on. I get that, right? And here's all the reasons that they work, and they're punitive and all this stuff. Again, I think that we're dealing in a manner where the prevailing thought is that we are still such a dominant superpower that we can pretty much do whatever we want and everybody will conform. What I keep telling people is, yes, the United States is still the most powerful force in the world. It's the most powerful economy, everything like that. But the Don is slipping, as they would say, right? And other countries aren't just going to sit there and be third world Bush League. Like, you have other first world countries around the world, whether they are constitutional or democratic or totalitarian, the fact remains that they still exist. Okay. And you have this mass, let's say mass affluence, but you have a lot of people moving up from subsistence level to middle class level. So you have burgeoning economies, and these people, many of them are American educated. So what do? They go back home. We have friends in Ghana that run the largest media group there. They're all American educated. They run it like a US business. So these people aren't dumb, right? And they know what the game is, and they figured out ways to work around it, which is why you see the proliferation of BRICS. And I wonder sometimes, is it that enough people will believe this on its face and be okay with it? Or do they really think that people are so dumb that they don't understand that some of this stuff isn't working? Like, I'm not sure exactly which one it is yet.
I saw an X post today from a well-known, I guess we would call him a conservative talker. I don't really think he's conservative, but he's been aligned with conservatives since COVID, and you kind of understand that coalition. There are some conservatives, not conservative anyway. And he's very popular. You would know him if I said his name, and most people probably would if you're watching the show. He noted, and I replied to his thread, but he said, we have to admit that President Trump is not dumb. Calling him stupid doesn't make sense. I'm paraphrasing. Elon's not dumb either, Elon Musk. And well, yeah, no, President Trump is not a stupid man. He's not a dumb man.
No.
You don't have that kind of success in this world and be an idiot. You cannot. You have to be smart. I said the problem is not that people think President Trump is stupid. I don't think anybody serious thinks President Trump is stupid. But I do think at least the messengers in the administration, or maybe some of it as advisors, think that we are stupid. And that somehow we don't understand, because they always say, well, we just didn't explain it well enough. They always tell you that these kinds that if we just understood what was going on, if we understood the 8,700,493.3 degree chess that we're gonna see in 10 years, assuming that everybody continues to doing what Trump wants them to do long after he's dead,
and eating burritos
for less than $20 a night, then we'll understand why we're going through this now. But the problem is not that we think he's dumb; they think we're dumb, and then we get penalized for noticing, and we get name called. We're not really conservative, or we're pro-communist, or we're pro Iran, or whatever name the conservatives want to throw at you now. So they've completely adopted the Democrat playbook for that, for their resistance, and this continues in this story, RC. Trump allowing and this announcement came out the end of last week, allowing 300,000 metric tons of tariff-free beef imports in a bid to cut prices, which draws rancher backlash. And by the way, my buddy Trent Loose from Trent on the Loose Spec News, this is his wheelhouse, and he is going to join me for an in-depth exclusive interview on this particular topic, because no one knows this topic more or better than Trent. That's going to be on Culture Crossroads on Sunday, and maybe we can leak out a little bit of that later in the week on the Spin Cycle. But here's the issue. So beef is more expensive, and one of the main reasons it's more expensive is because there's a cattle shortage in America, and Trent's going to go through why that is and what it's going to take to resupply our herds. But in the meantime, then we've been importing cattle from Argentina that also has a cattle shortage, who's been importing it from Brazil. So we're not really importing from Argentina, we're importing from Brazil, degrees of Kevin Bacon away, okay? Now what has happened is, of course, now we've seen a $5.50 pound of ground beef go to some cases $8 or $9. And there's also country of origin issues in this and why that matters. You want to know where your beef comes from, because depending on where it comes from, it gets mixed with a bunch of other stuff. And not to mention, other countries don't have the same food standards that we do here. Now, yes, we put a lot of chemicals in ours that other countries don't, but other countries put a lot of fillers in their food that we don't. And some of that can be problematic, and some of it even tainted with different disease. So there's country of origin matters a lot. All that to say, so now President Trump, because this is a 90-day tariff pause. So now, because we're going into the midterms, poll numbers are cratering. We're in a war that's not going to end anytime soon, that nobody asked for. We're in an economy where the prices of food and gas and utilities are not down 50%, as President Trump boasted during his campaign for re-election. We're seeing these things, we're noticing them, we're seeing the surveillance state be implemented against our will across the board. And so now President Trump, in an effort to, I really think it's purely political, purely to try to say, hey, we brought prices down, because again, it's a 90-day timer. Well, what's going to happen within 90 days? The midterms are going to happen within 90 days. So we're importing foreign beef, basically, and lower quality, lower grade, and with the promise that it'll be 25% less at the retail checkout line. So here, peasants, here's some nasty beef that you wouldn't normally eat that we're going to bring in, and it's going to undercut the American ranchers, because now for them to compete, they have to lower their prices, both in the selling, the ranching of it, then at the processing, then when those processors sell to the distributors, they have to bring their prices down 25% to compete with the garbage that you're bringing in from other countries. And you want us to eat this garbage so that you can say that you brought prices down for us. Now, when really this is a political gimmick that in the long run hurts American farming, hurts American ranching, and a big piece of our freedom is the ability to grow and supply our own food.
I'm so excited that Trent's going to be on with us on Culture Crossroads. I tagged him in something on Twitter over the weekend on this exact topic, because he's the expert at it. So I'm excited to hear what his thoughts are, especially about our resupply. But Andrew, we covered this on the Spin Cycle late last week, and it was one of those stories we pulled in and said, no, we need to start talking about this now. President Trump has also come out and said, beef-like product. Like, there's weird things being said, which kind of goes to your point about fillers and kind of the slop, right? Like, what are we actually getting? Once we can determine where it's actually from. So look, if Brazil's providing cows, Brazilians eat a lot of meat. Just go to a Brazilian steakhouse and you kind of see for yourself, right? So that's fine. But it going through all those hands and the different standards and everything like that, that's part one. Part two is, doesn't it present a fundamental challenge if we have so many degrees of separation from the origin of something? Isn't that what got us into this problem in the first place? We have capable farmers and ranchers here that have a desire to produce. I mean, we're honestly, Andrew, in our household, we're switching. I said after this happened, I said, we're going to go to our local ranchers and we're just going to get our meat from them. I'm so done with this whole thing. I want to know where it came from, who did it, and I would much rather support them than somebody I don't know giving me something that I'm not exactly sure what's in it. So, that's another move for us in that direction to support those who do this work, right? And I come, my family has a farming background too over the generations, and so I just wonder, and maybe I shouldn't wonder, but I just wonder. It's like, so if you're doing this for political points, you probably could have come up with a slightly better formula to get people to drink the poison. But to say something like this in the level of arrogance, just, we'll get you lower prices, but yeah, screw the people screw your neighbor, is not the answer. And it's like, so you put the squeeze on these guys with conflicts, so they can't afford fertilizers, so they can't do what they got to do, which cuts down on our beef supply, and then you try to squeeze them, right? It's insane to me that we've even gotten to this point, and the best answer you can come up with is, hey, I'm going to give you a little. This is the equivalent, not exact, but this is the equivalent of bringing down gas prices by releasing the strategic oil reserve.
Yeah, it's similar.
Same thing. Temporary, going to be crap, and then it's going to skyrocket. And it's like, you got a little relief.
And it hurts us long term. It hurts America long term. And can I say something else? This is schizophrenic, and this is this is the mercurial President Trump, where it is a little bit third grade. It's not, because it's not consistent with other policy. He's pausing tariffs on beef, yet adding tariffs on automobiles. It's fine for automobiles to be more expensive because I guess people aren't, and we're not. Yeah, we're not out buying cars right now because we're trying to buy beef, And but here's the foreign competition is hurting American producers, so we're going to raise tariffs. But that's for automobiles. But for beef, American prices are too high, so let's remove the tariffs and increase foreign competition. We're not even using the tariffs consistently anymore. And in all ways, we get all the liability and none of the benefit. We being Americans, and then if you want to talk politically, we being conservatives.
I'm up to my backside in more nuts than a fruitcake, and they all seem to be in Washington, D.C.
Am I wrong? Am I missing something on that?
No, you're not. And this is an opportunity for us as Americans to make our voices known in a very meaningful way. And that starts with supporting the people who are provided to you directly. If I'd say anything, do you support them? It's going to cost me more. Well, you know what?
It already is costing.
It's already costing you more. It's like at least one, you're helping to energize the economy of the United States. You're supporting your neighbor who actually does this for a living. That's an awesome thought. And you know what you're getting.
Yeah. And I think that's the way we fight back against this, is to do what you can to buy local, which is also why, listen, when you're voting in your state elections, when different agricultural or specifically food production comes in a way, and unfortunately we have the USDA, which probably should be abolished, but you want more local food processing plants, both for meat and your farmers markets local, because the closer your processing plant is to you, the better chance you have of being able to have both affordable and better quality meat. The vertical integration that we've had with our processing then puts a bottleneck on that, which actually makes it more vulnerable. You want to talk national security, more vulnerable to attacks because they can cut off, because there are fewer levers of transportation and distribution for the food that you and I depend on. It doesn't come from Walmart. It doesn't come from our local grocery store. It comes from these ranchers. It goes through processors, and it gets distributed from there. If you can find a processor that's a local that you can purchase from, if you're going to spend more money there, because your dollars will actually be making a difference and making a statement that Washington, D.C. will not be able to ignore.
It's up to us, right? We are who we've been waiting for.
As has been said. But we certainly are the cavalry, because the cavalry ain't coming because it's us. So let's do that. We had one more story, but we're up on time, so we'll get to that one tomorrow. We were going to talk about the $40 trillion and how we can't grow our way out of it, but that's going to be a conversation that I guess we'll talk about tomorrow, which is a great teaser and a reason why you should come back tomorrow too. For R.C. Williams, I'm Andrew Southwick. Thank you for hanging out with us. And a reminder again, the big three: like, share, subscribe. Help the channels grow, help the show grow, help this information get out to more and more people. And we appreciate you taking time out of your busy day to spend with us here on the Spin Cycle. We will see you next time.